I think the two things you need to do to be successful.
Yes.
You have to come up with the best decisions, and you have to have the courage to make them.
Yes.
And I think the real problem about most people with the best decisions is that they think it's in their heads.
Yeah.
And most people, tragically, are attached to opinions in their heads, and they don't put them out and stress test them. So the thing that I learned was really to take those ideas, put them out there in a certain way, and stress test them. Whatever success I've had in life has had more to my knowing how to deal with my not knowing than anything I know. And that taught me a lot more, and it taught me how to take in what others have, and that was, you know, a key thing. So this is really about how to do that.
Well, you know, let's talk about how that came about for you, because I think, you know, when I went around and interviewed people, when you watch somebody on CNBC, everybody knows the market's going, and they're going to tell you with absolute certainty, right? And then when I interviewed the best investors on earth, you obviously being one of the top, there's this not only humility, it's not like a false humility, it's like, I don't know if I'm right, and I have to prepare. I have to have an asset allocation that if I'm wrong, I'm still going to do well. It's a different mindset. But tell me, it really came from failure that you looked at this, because you were somewhat, you know, proud, and maybe your own description was arrogant at one point. Let's go back early on. You know, early days, you got into the commodities business, and I know you were trading your own accounts, and you had some experiences with pork bellies that got your attention. And then you told me when we first met about when we went off the gold standard and how wrong you were. Tell me about those two situations, and how did they inform or change your mindset to say, no matter how certain I am, I'm going to stress this test with people that are smart but have a different point of view than I do?
Well, you know, in the markets, in order to beat the markets, you have to have an independent point of view, and that's different from the consensus, because the consensus is built into the price, and you've got to be right, and you're going to be wrong a fair amount of. And therefore, I learned just what you said, the power of mistakes, the power of learning of mistakes. And so there's the pork belly example, of course, that was one of those that I wrote about in the book.
Yeah.
And then there was the gold standard, and I was clerking on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, 1971. The U.S., the world doesn't take our money anymore. And President Nixon gets on the television, and he says that the link to gold is broken. And what that meant at the time is that money, as we thought about it, was just like checks in a checkbook. Yes. And what mattered was the money that was in the bank.
The gold.
And that was the gold.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden that stopped. And I thought that the stock market...
So basically the money is attached to nothing. It's what it is today, and everybody's gotten used to it. But then all of a sudden it's worth nothing. I used to turn it in and get gold, and I turn it in and get zero.
Right. And I walked on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, and I thought the stock market was going to go down, and it went up. Okay. And what I realized then, that when I went back and I studied history, that although it never happened in my lifetime before, it happened before. And so the greatest surprises that I learned about are things that never happened in our lifetimes before, but they happened before. Everything has happened before. Everything is repeated.
It's a cycle.
So but the one that had the biggest effect on me was 1982.
Yeah, I want to talk about that.
Okay, 1982. Okay, I had calculated that American banks had lent a lot of money to a bunch of countries that would not be able to pay back. Latin American and emerging countries that couldn't pay back. And it was a sort of a crazy point of view. But Mexico defaulted.
You were right about that part.
Right about that part, but you're not right if you're not making money in the markets. Okay, so they default August 1982, and I thought the stock market's going to go down, and the stock market went up because the Federal Reserve eased, things changed, and whatever, and I learned. Okay, so I was. But
it wasn't. You didn't just miss. You were like publicly humiliated. What happened to your company at the time? You lost all your. Tell us.
I had to lose. I lost all the people who worked for me. I had to let them.
They were like family to you.
These were like family. Yes.
Yeah.
And then I
you had to borrow $4,000. Is what it was?
You know the story well.
Oh, go ahead, tell us. I'm interrupting. I don't mean to. I just
no.
But
Right. It's in the book. So I lost all these people I cared about. I was very publicly wrong. And
how many employees were left when you were done?
Me. So I had to make a choice. Am I going to put on a tie and go to Wall Street and have a job or not? And I had to borrow $4,000 from my dad to help pay for my family bills.